Hey guys, today I'm going to be trying out a lens that I've always been curious about, but I've never actually had a chance to use. So today I'm going to be testing out the Canon EF 85mm 1.4 IS prime lens. So is this lens still worth buying in 2025 and adapting to an RF system? So I'm going to shoot some portraits, see how this thing holds up, and I also, maybe later if I get a chance, I'm going to compare it to my RF 85mm f2 to see how this lens performs. So let's get started. So shooting in this greenhouse honestly felt a bit like cheating, to be honest, with this 85mm prime, because you only need like a little bit of interesting background color or texture, or both ideally, maybe something in the foreground to add a bit of depth, and the lens just does the rest, because that fast f1.4 aperture just melts everything into this beautiful painterly blur, and it'll just really make your subject pop out of the frame without really even having to try. It's not just great for close-ups as well. This focal length and fast aperture makes it perfect for full-length shots with a kind of dreamy 3D look to them. It's going to really smooth out any kind of busy, distracting background. And then yeah, just take a step or two closer to your subject and you can get some really beautiful, flattering head and shoulder portraits.
That's nice.
This EF 85mm 1.4 prime has that classic EF vibe, I think, where it's got a little bit of a softness to the rendering that's really flattering for portraits. It's going to smooth out the skin a little bit, and wide open as well. It's got a slightly lower contrast look that you don't often see in RF primes, but still, just zooming in, this lens is more than sharp enough for portraits like this. It's that sweet spot, I think, that a lot of these EF primes hit, where they are sharp where it matters, but not too clinical. Some of these older primes just have a really pleasing organic look for portraits, I think. But yeah, if you zoom in, it does hold up. Eyes, skin, everything is tack sharp, even at f1.4. Again, it just has that slightly softer contrast curve compared to something like an RF L lens, that's for sure. And yeah, you're gonna either like that look or not, but you can always just add a little bit of contrast or clarity in post anyway. Love the colours and skin tones, they just look beautiful from this lens. And this kind of scene here is really a bit of a torture test for any lens, because there's loads of specular highlights in the background and a lot of really detailed foliage in the background that can make some quite sharp, nervous edges in the bokeh. And honestly, this lens handled it mostly really well. Every now and again, there was the odd shot where I thought the bokeh maybe looked a little bit nervous in some of the more complex, hard to tame areas. But overall, it does a really solid job of taming those potentially distracting backgrounds, even in the most challenging situations. I just love the dreamy look you get in a shot like this. This lens is so good for headshots, and this was probably my favourite shot of the day. And this shot also shows you how the bokeh balls kind of stretch a little bit to the corner of the frame into more of a cat's eye shape. And that's totally normal, to be honest. Even with a lot of the newer, more expensive RF primes, they do exactly the same thing. So another thing I like to do with an 85mm prime, or any prime really, but it works best on a longer focal length, is find something that not only makes for a nice background like this long grass, but it's also going to look awesome in the foreground as well and give us some like foreground interest and create a bit of depth in a portrait. So what I'll do is have Rachel basically sit where she is, and you don't need much long grass at all in the front. And it's just going to make for some really dreamy portraits when you've got not only a really beautiful smooth background, but some really nice smooth foreground bokeh as well. Overall, I am very happy with the results from this lens. As somebody who used to own and shoot with the RF 85mm 1.2 all the time, this lens definitely scratches that itch for me for a much lower price. Before we continue, I've got to let you know, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now, as a photographer, having a great site that showcases your work, I think, is a must. And we don't have time to learn how to code and edit sites, so that's where Squarespace comes in, because it just makes it so easy. Most of the changes you're going to want to make are as simple as drag and drop, and Squarespace even has great AI features like Design Intelligence, which can really help you create a personalized website and unique digital identity effortlessly. And of course, the fully customizable photo galleries are just perfect for showing off your portfolio to potential clients. Squarespace also has fantastic e-commerce tools, which make setting up an online store a breeze, and you can just start selling in no time and also handle many different payment types seamlessly thanks to Squarespace payments. So if you're ready to get started on your website, head on over to squarespace.com/jamesreader and use code jamesreader for 10% off your first domain or website. So I'm liking what I'm seeing so far from the EF lens, but I brought my prime with me, which I use right now, the RF 85mm f2. So I'm gonna shoot some shots side by side, compare the rendering and compare sharpness a little bit as well, because I could be wrong, but I think that these two lenses, especially if you get the EF lens used, are actually pretty similar in price. So let's see how they compare against each other. So here's our shot with the EF 85 1.4. And keep an eye not just on the background, but also on the foreground, so you can see how each lens handles rendering and subject separation. And honestly, they look pretty close, but the RF 85mm f2 just comes across a little bit more flat by comparison. It's also quite a bit more contrasty wide open, and you can see how much more defined the grass is in the foreground. The EF version just does a better job of giving you a more softer, dreamy look to the out of focus areas of the image. Zooming in, it is tough to call. The RF 85 f2 might edge ahead slightly on contrast and detail, maybe with a bit more texture in the skin and the eyebrows, but honestly, it's really close. Here's one more example, and again, the EF version just has that signature dreamy rendering that I really want from an 85mm prime. It smooths out all of those specular highlights in the background in a way that the RF f2 version doesn't quite manage. And at a crazy 500% zoom, I still can't pick a winner, to be honest. Both of these lenses are very sharp. The RF 85 f2 I think is actually very underrated when it comes to image quality. It is probably one of the sharpest, more budget-friendly primes that you can get right now on the RF mount. But the EF 85 1.4 holds its own, and it just gives you slightly more pleasing rendering without really any sacrifice of sharpness over the f2 RF version. So I went in not really expecting a whole lot from the autofocus with this lens, especially being an adapted EF lens, but it was honestly flawless when it came to photos. It was really snappy and accurate. I did find I had maybe a couple more focus misses than I'm used to when using native RF glass, but overall, it was very reliable and it tracked the eye of the subject really, really well on my R5 Mark II. I also thought maybe the focusing might be a bit noisy, but no, it actually focuses almost completely silently, so yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised by the autofocus performance of this lens. So it's pretty rare that I would really ever reach for an 85mm prime for video, but this EF 85 1.4 has built-in stabilization. So I was quite curious to see how it would hold up for video, and honestly, I was very impressed with the results. The footage looks beautiful, it's got a really nice organic look to it with loads of depth, and it's just a perfect lens for things like talking head setups or B-roll in general, because it gives you that really nice cinematic look. The only time autofocus really struggled was in this long grass, which, to be fair, a lot of lenses would struggle with this, and in general it didn't really ever feel like I was shooting with a slightly older lens at all, or an adapted lens, whether that was in photo or video. And the stabilization in this lens was great, which makes it amazing for handheld video. All of my clips came out super stable and super smooth, so I was very impressed with the stabilization as well. So I must admit, in terms of handling, this isn't the most comfortable prime that I've used. It's pretty front heavy on camera, and I do think that most of that is down to adapting it, because once it's on the adapter, you're shifting the weight of the lens like an inch forward or so. So it just constantly feels like there's this weight of the lens just kind of pulling the camera down a little bit, and over a couple of hours of shooting, that can be a little bit uncomfortable on your wrist. And it actually handles pretty similarly to the RF 85 1.2, so it's not really that bad, and you get used to it pretty quickly, but compared to my 85 f2, it is just a little bit uncomfortable to use. So that is my quick review of this awesome EF prime, and honestly, Canon, we really need an RF version of this lens, because right now you've got either the super expensive and massive RF 85 1.2s or the more budget-friendly f2 version, which is what I have, and both are great, but it'd be really nice to have something native that sits in the middle. So I think if Canon could just shrink this EF version down just a couple of 100 grams, keep the image stabilization, and you can leave the image quality exactly the same for me. I would buy this in an instant. But even as it stands, this lens is still 100% worth adapting in 2025 because it is sharp, it's got great rendering, and the performance I think feels pretty much native anyway, whether that's for photo or video. So if you are after a faster 85mm prime and don't want to break the bank, I think this lens is still a solid choice. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think of this lens. Do you own it? Would you consider it? And also let me know if there are any other EF lenses that you think that I should check out. I love to hear your guys' suggestions, and I want to shine a light on a few more EF lenses that I haven't managed to try yet. But anyway, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.